This episode of From Angel to Exit is brought to you by Align 5. Align 5 specializes in mergers and acquisitions for growth-focused entrepreneurs and family businesses. With decades of buy and sell side experience, they prioritize client alignment, avoiding conflicts of interest common in other firms. Align 5 delivers above average industry results by customizing strategies for diverse industries, ensuring optimal valuations and securing strategic acquisitions or exit partners. If you want to find out more, check out align5.com. That's align, the number 5.com. Are you serious about planning a successful business exit? From Angel to Exit is your go-to resource. Subscribe to our newsletter at eckfeldt.com/podcast for even more valuable insights. And to get personalized guidance, take our free exit readiness assessment. It's just 24 questions, and it will give you a clear picture of your exit readiness. Find the assessment at eckfeldt.com/exit. Submit your results, and we'll schedule a free follow-up call to discuss your specific situation and the best way to maximize your valuation and ensure a successful transaction. Now, back to the episode. Welcome, everyone. This is From Angel to Exit. I'm Bruce Eckfeldt. I'm your host. Our guest today is Wesley Portegies. He is a founder, exited founder. We're going to hear about his story. We're going to hear about his business, about the exit he went through, and what he's doing now. I always love these conversations with folks that have been through the process, and actually in this case, not too in the distant past. It's still reasonably fresh. I'm excited to really kind of get into what actually the process, the logistics around it, and some of the insights, hopefully for folks that are earlier in the process, get some good takeaways for things to think about. So with all that, Wesley, welcome to the program.
Thank you. A pleasure to be here.
Yeah, no, it's great. I'm excited for this. Before we dive into the business and the exit, I would love to get just a little bit of personal background. Where, I guess, before you got into your business, give us a little sense of upbringing. Like, did you want to be an entrepreneur from day one, right? In kindergarten, was this how you answered the questions? Give me a little background.
Yeah, it's a great question, actually, because I don't come from a family of entrepreneurs. Historically, my dad was actually a mechanic. My mom worked in a supermarket. I come from a fairly modest, normal upbringing.
Yeah.
But then it happened that me and my sister, my only sibling, we both became entrepreneurs, actually, unexpectedly. And I don't think I ever, as a kid, thought I want to become an entrepreneur or a business owner. It just happened. I'm very much full with ideas all the time of things I could do. And I guess it's just hard to navigate the corporate environment as an employee when you're that, overflowing with ideas and things you want to do.
Yeah.
So I think that showed in my education. I'd I guess some challenges going through high school and college. As a result, then I actually started working in a large corporate environment, and of course, locking horns with one or two managers over time. And I started realizing that was mainly because I just had all these ideas, and I wanted to. I had some visions, I think, beyond what was possible in that particular situation.
Yeah.
So I ended up actually starting my first company when I was 19.
Okay.
This was all very small potatoes compared with what I ultimately built.
Yeah.
But I've had a few endeavors, actually, all over the place, from selling wine to car cleaning products to other things, but ended up ultimately actually working in the medical industry, where I was the client of the company that I ultimately built, MedComms Experts. So, I wasn't the client because the company didn't exist, but I was representing what would now be one of our clients, right? And I was actually pretty frustrated with how these agencies, medical communications agencies, would support me, and hence I decided to found one myself.
Yeah. It's well, no one's there to do it for me, so I'll go and do it for other people. Yeah,
exactly.
I guess, when did you, when you realized you had this opportunity, when did it actually click for you that, oh, I should build a business around this? Was there a moment or kind of this shift of perspective? Because it sounds like in the beginning you were just looking for services. Hey, I'm trying to get my job done. I need this service. I can't find anyone. This is really frustrating. Like, when did it click for you to like, oh, maybe other people have this need and maybe there's an opportunity in the market here?
Yeah, it was actually so I had this frustration of working with agencies. And then at the same time, the company I was working for, they were reorganizing, and
Hmm.
I worked in a
Yeah.
typical large corporate organization, so not much was happening. I think my brain was kind of underutilized. I remember doing my MBA and thinking about this new venture all at the same time. So I just needed like something new, and I had a colleague that I was working with at the time, and we were
Okay.
going out for drinks actually. So like, what would be cool? We can do this better. Why don't we start an agency? And he actually, became my co-founder at the
Yeah.
time. So it was literally over drinks.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of businesses have been started, over alcohol of various
Yeah.
sorts. Um, and so, and when you started, like, what was did you have a particular vision of where this was going to be? Were you like, hey, this could be $1 billion company. We could change the world. Like, I guess how ambitious or how much vision did you have in the beginning?
That's a great question. Like, there was definitely a vision. What it turned out to be was completely different, which I think happens
Mm.
very often.
Yeah.
Um, and the vision wasn't that much focused actually on like monetary reward, right?
Yeah.
Like it was more like, I guess, frustration with how things were done, and a little bit is like almost arrogant way of thinking is like, why does no one understand how this needs to be done, right? So we'll just go in there and show how it's done.
Yeah.
So it was very much about like driving innovation in our particular space. A lot has changed over the last almost 13 years that I've had the company, but at the time, I remember this was a pretty dull industry, right? Like
Yeah.
a lot of our competitors, they were led by, first of all, there were a lot of like privately held agencies still out at the time.
Yeah.
There are not many left.
Mhm.
Um, Most of them led by, medical doctors or other like scientific people. And of course, there's nothing wrong with being scientific,
Yeah.
but, like I felt more creativity was needed. I come
Okay.
from a marketing background. I'm not a scientist, neither
Yeah.
am I a medical doctor. Some people, told me that I was crazy of starting a medical communications company without that background, but
Without that. Yeah.
but I felt like, well, the creativity is the part that I'm actually bringing in. The scientific rigor and knowledge,
Yeah.
I can find people that are way
Yeah.
better at that than I am, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And give us a little sense of the growth journey. I mean, you mentioned that things shifted at times, like any good inflection points or kind of learnings as the company started to scale or you got some traction?
Yeah, there were many different insights. So first of all, like I think it's important when you start something, you need to realize that you're probably going to end up doing something else. It's almost like maybe your degree, right? You study for something, and
Yeah.
at that point in time, you think you're going to be in that profession that you're studying for, but you might actually not. And I think it's more often that happens than the
Yeah.
other way around. So in our case, when we started the company, we thought we were going to be more like a freelancer marketplace, like
Okay.
Upwork or something like that, but very specific to our industry.
Hmm.
And it took about 4 weeks. Then I remember someone from Baxter called us and say, "Hey, we need to launch a new product and we need help." And before we knew, we were like helping Baxter launch a product, and we realized, okay, we're going to be an agency.
Yeah.
After developing all the plans and all the one-page business
Scrap all
plans
that.
and so
Yeah.
on. Yeah, but I also think that's important. You need
Yeah.
to set out with some kind of vision. But I also think you need to be very flexible in your
Yeah.
mind and understand like how are we going to apply our knowledge properly here,
Yeah.
um, in whichever way possible.
Yeah.
So I think like this flexibility in your thinking and not being too rigid in trying to just keep executing what you set out to do, but understanding that sometimes the market wants something differently from you, and
Yeah.
that's where you then go.
Yeah. And it is, I always find it's a little bit of, strategic challenge to kind of figure, okay, so the market's saying we should go left. It's like, oh, okay, like, is this really what we want to do? Like, there is a choice there. And sometimes it's like, hey, we're being told to go that we should respond. Other times it's like, well, yeah, maybe that's a short-term thing, but we need to keep an eye on a longer-term plan. Did you have any particular kind of process, or I'm just always curious how people kind of companies set strategy or kind of develop strategy? Any kind of systems or frameworks or rhythms or anything that you leaned on or used as you got into that?
Yeah, like over time, right? Like in the beginning, it was just like we didn't even have an office, right? So
Yeah.
and now in the post-pandemic world, that might be more normal, but at the time, it was, it wasn't. So,
Novel. Yeah. Yeah.
so we were just like two guys with a laptop, basically, like trying to start. So then over the first 2 years, there wasn't much structure. In some years, we didn't even set a goal. We were just, like busy doing the work
Yeah.
that we got thrown at us. We were in that sense quite privileged with getting a lot of work and even though I would discourage someone from using this mantra for too long, but like if you deliver good work you tend to get more work in our business,
Yeah.
right? So it's very much like a trust business. um but then over time, especially when we started really growing and hiring more people, it became more and more important to have these structures, right? And I think at the top of our size, we were with like about 90 people. And that's really where I started feeling also like as the CEO,
Hmm.
I started feeling like, okay, we need more and more structure. It becomes harder to get everyone like pointed in the same
Yeah.
direction.
Yeah.
So for instance, tree hack is a model
Uh-huh.
we have used, which is, I guess, a little bit similar to EOS.
Hmm.
Um, in certain elements. And that has been really helpful, especially when it comes to communication rhythms,
Yeah.
having things like daily huddles, thinking about how you cascade information throughout the organization. So how do you cascade it down, but also how do you create like a bottom-up kind of feedback stream from
Hmm.
your teams that you can use for your decision making was extremely important.
Yeah.
Working quarter by quarter with quarterly goals and rocks and all these things has also been pretty important to us.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess at what point did you feel like you had kind of a real company that, was going to had the potential to scale, right? Like you went from being, hey, look, we've got a couple of projects, we've got a small team, like we're making money, to being like, oh, we've got something that could actually have, a future and kind of something bigger than you are individually. Like, was there a moment for you where that started to happen?
Yeah, I would say like it was like 4 or 5 years in, 4 or 5 years in,
Yeah.
um, which is also around the time we expanded into the US, right? So I started my company in Switzerland.
Okay.
I'm European
Yeah.
myself originally, um, and we actually got some clients from the US, which surprised me because we here in the US our market is extremely competitive.
Yeah.
So I was kind of thinking, why are these, pharmaceutical companies working with some kind of, a few guys in Switzerland?
Right.
But like, and that's where I started understanding, like, oh, we have actually something unique. Because I did actually ask them that question, like, why
Yeah.
are you working with us, right? But thank you for your business,
Yeah.
but
Thank
why are
you.
you working with us?
Not that we signed the
Uh,
contract. Why did you sign the
yeah.
contract?
And they said like, well, there's something like unique about working with you. We like how you, your way of thinking. You're
Yeah.
quite innovative and so on. Like I feel like very detailed things that they liked about us, and it's like, okay, let's actually try that in the United States. So I moved over and started building up our business here, and that's when the light started really switching on in my mind. It's like, okay, if we even get like business from the other side of the world,
Yeah.
in a very competitive landscape, we must be doing something right, so we can probably get further than we even thought in the beginning. So that was like a pivotal moment for us to realize, like, yeah, we can actually do that, and this is something that can scale. But now, knowing that you can scale and knowing how to scale are two completely different
Yeah.
things. That has been a pretty hard challenge, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. Always. Um, and I guess at what point did you feel um, that you had something that might be sellable, or you started to think about where is this ultimately going, other than just being kind of a cash flowing business for you, and you ride off into the sunset being CEO? I mean, like when did this idea of, oh, we need to actually think about kind of a long term plan around this start to come up for you?
Um, well, you know what? Like, I've always had this mindset that the company, like, I identified with my company, and I still do, right?
Yeah.
Um, but it is its own entity.
Okay.
And I want the company to grow, which is something that could be separate from me, right?
Okay.
So I always wanted to make decisions that were good for the company and not just good for Wesley. Like
Hmm.
in an ideal world, they're both.
Yeah.
right? But sometimes they're not. And um, then I joined the EO, the
Mm-hmm.
Entrepreneurs Organization, here in New York City, which was an amazing experience in terms of working with a forum that they had and met other entrepreneurs and so on. But I happened to go to one of their events, and there was a guy called Brett Deering. Um, and he is like, I don't know, like he had a talk about like exits and so
Yeah.
on. And I just ended up being there just because I wanted to actually network with a few people there.
Yep.
And I thought like, well, I'm not interested in that. Like I was not planning on selling the company or anything like that. But he made this one remark that always stuck with me, which was like, regardless if you're interested in selling your company, you should always run it as if you're selling it.
Yeah.
Because if you do it like that, it's when you're selling your company, you know the buyer, the potential buyer is going to scrutinize every single thing.
Mm-hmm.
And those things are probably very important
Yeah.
things, right? So even if you're never going to sell your company, you should still run it like as if you were selling it. And that really struck a chord with me. And because I am perfectionist by nature, like actually my wife is too, and we're always joking with each other. So we're recovering perfectionists,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Um and so I was like, oh, here's another opportunity to actually do an even better job, right?
Yeah.
Like, so what are the things that we need in place for that? So I started like talking a bit more with investors. Like I would get like, like probably a lot of people do, but I got quite a few of these emails and outreach
Yeah.
from potential investors, right? And typically I would just ignore them. But now because of that, I started to think like, okay, well, let's have a talk, not really
Mm-hmm.
with the intent to sell, but
Yeah.
just with the intent to kind of become
Learn the
acquainted
process.
and see
Yeah.
what they are looking at. So then I presented like at a few of those investors a few times and then
Okay.
listened to their feedback. And I thought like, well, that's great. Like it was very inspiring. You know, someone telling you that your EBITDA could be twice as high, or someone telling you it's like, hey, you're in a service business, but I think you're overstaffed, or, like it might not always be true,
Yeah.
but it can lead you in the right direction and it can motivate you to look at things
Mm-hmm.
like anew because you also, honestly, like when you do something for so many years, over a decade,
Yep.
sometimes you stop seeing it all. You get used to it,
Yep.
right? And I think it was a very encouraging and motivating experience. So at that point, I was really not like planning to take on any investors, for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
But then at a certain point, I felt we could accelerate more. There was actually some time where I was looking to acquire other companies.
Yeah.
Um, but then while being in the process of trying that, I realized, that was kind of, we needed more capital, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there were like different routes to go about it. I could have found more capital in different ways. But then I actually realized that what is the best for the company, which is like, for me, number one would be to actually find a group that would like to invest in our company, and then
Mm-hmm.
together we'll grow because they also bring in like a lot of expertise.
Yeah.
So it's not just about funds, it's also about expertise and understanding how you grow a company inorganically.
Yeah.
The sales part and the organic growth, like that is something, like we're used to. That's what we have done for 12 plus years now.
Mm-hmm. You knew how to do it
The
that way.
inorganic part we have never done before, right? So
Yeah.
it's also nice to partner with someone that has that experience.
Yeah. And so what did you feel like you needed to do? What was that process like, I guess? Like, what did you need to do internally to kind of get ready for that? How did you start to approach investors? What were you looking for? How did you evaluate them? Kind of, what was your strategy at that point?
Yeah, so it goes back a little bit to the different conversations I have had and some presentations I gave, um, and mainly the feedback I got from that, right? Like, and they're pretty much they can be very random. Like, and
Mm-hmm.
some of these things that I give as an example here were maybe not necessarily something we needed to work on, but like an example I've heard a lot is like make sure that all your team members have like a proper employment contract,
Mm-hmm.
and if needed, maybe like a non-compete, or
Mm-hmm.
um, there can be very little things that in the day to day you're not thinking about too
Yep.
much, but they become like a bigger topic when you exit. So I think it's like, yeah, I think there's a lot of information out there that people can find on, like, okay, what are some things you really need to make sure you
Yeah.
you get properly set up, and surprisingly, I think they're typical the things that in the day to day you don't you might actually it's like these little nuisances that you tend to push away because it's not important today,
Hmm.
but they become really
Yeah.
important then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're not important now, but they become important later. And the other problem is that they're often easy to do early and very difficult to do later.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think the example I gave about non-competes or contracts are a good example of that. Like imagine going to your 80, 90,
Yeah.
100 people and give them all new contracts. That's
Yeah.
not an easy project,
Yeah.
right? But if
Exactly.
you just make sure you get it all right from the start. And yeah, definitely. That's a good point, Bruce. Like, anyone who would be who's like early in their venture and listening to this, like, yeah, invest in that foundational work because even though today you think it doesn't matter,
Yeah.
there's going to be likely and hopefully a time where it does really matter to you, and
Yeah.
you will your future self will be grateful for
Yeah.
you doing it
Exactly.
now. Hmm.
Exactly. Yeah, we run into the especially with services companies, like even your contracts, client contracts, like are they assignable? Like all these kind of things where it's like you don't think about it, but you can have a contract that's been there for 4, 5, 6 years. You've got this long term client, you go to sell, and then you realize the contract's not assignable. Now you're having to go to the client, and now this client is holding you hostage to do this deal because they've got to sign this thing. And I had a case where I had to pony up. It was about 20 grand to an employee that we didn't have a non-compete with. And it was like, all right, and actually I knew we had one and I knew it was signed. I couldn't find the document, right? I went through emails, I went through folders, and finally we had to just present something. And like, it ended up being a 20 grand check that I had to sign to get that thing. I mean, obviously we
Yeah,
did it because we had to do, we were doing a deal otherwise, but yeah. And people don't think about that, right? It's like, it's not on your checklist early, but if you can get them on your checklist early, it just makes it so much easier later. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
yeah.
it's especially like policies and these kind of things. One
Yeah.
other one that came to mind was GDPR and
Oh,
data
geez.
privacy,
Yeah.
right? Like you can stick to all the rules and you can do perfectly what is expected from you, but maybe not have it documented. Well, that's going to
Hmm.
be a problem, right? Like,
Yeah. It doesn't
so
exist if it's
there,
not documented.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You're still gonna have to put a uh, um on your purchase and sale agreement. You're gonna have to warrant that.
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
wouldn't, you don't want to have to, but in those cases you end up doing that. Um, so how did you so you've had this vision, you saw the opportunity or the need to kind of bring in other capital and really kind of strategic capital. You saw opportunity to kind of grow and maybe do some roll up. Like, and then how did you like start to talk to potential investors? Like what path did you see? It was like, okay, I really need to go down private equity now because I need strategic capital and I need a platform to be able to do roll up. So that's the path I'm going down. Was that clear to you, or did you have to kind of sort that out over time?
Um, I took a very conscious effort to start like learning about this, right?
Hmm.
And learning to me meant just starting conversations. So those emails with all these requests to connect and look at partnership, right? Like how they typically phrase it. I would typically ignore at first, but then when I realized I wanted to, explore this idea, I would actually start responding to some of those and having some conversations. I must say I was also a little bit lucky because my wife happens to work for an investment bank.
No, there you had an
So
inside angle on the
yeah,
whole
so
thing.
she helped me
So,
also,
so that's the
getting
takeaway from
connected.
all entrepreneurs: is marry someone who's an investment
Yes.
banker, so that when you get there,
Yeah, but this one is taken, just to be clear.
yeah,
Um, um, but she was able to connect me, and
yeah,
actually, her company organized a conference, so I went there, and
yeah,
of course, like other people will have that opportunity too, right? Like I was just lucky that
yeah,
I was right into the middle of it, but I would really recommend to anyone considering this, just start talking, just
yeah.
have conversations, keep them like low stakes,
Hmm.
like don't necessarily feel that like you need to get up there on the podium and present and make the best impression right away.
Hmm.
Actually, just have
Yeah,
conversations, observe what they're asking from you. The
yep,
kind of questions they're asking are very telling on what they're looking for, and you're going to see some patterns over time when you talk more and more with those people.
yeah,
The other thing is that for me personally, so there were like a lot of like I guess initial conversations, and then there were only like a few like more in-depth
okay,
conversations, and then there was like only 2 or 3 situations where I actually went into the actual process,
Yeah.
right? So the first time I went through that process was extremely helpful. You go through due diligence and these kind of things, which
Hmm.
is, not an easy thing. It's very time consuming.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of a challenge to keep running your business and go through due diligence at the same time. So make sure you have some support. Um, and the first time I did that was actually quite a few years ago.
Hmm.
I think it was maybe 2021.
Okay.
Um, and it went pretty well, actually. So it was a good pressure test for us. Now, the
Yeah.
thing is that we ended up not proceeding
Okay.
simply because I didn't see the fit, right?
Okay.
Like it was more on a personal level, especially since for me, it wasn't a matter of, it wasn't really like driven just by money, right? Like I
Yeah.
wanted the company to grow beyond me.
Yeah.
So I was looking more for like partnership and growth opportunity. And
And you were
yeah, it
looking
ended
at,
up, yeah,
but it sounds like you were planning on staying on, right? Like it wasn't like I want to exit
absolutely.
and I'm done with this and I want to go off do something else. It was like I'm really looking for capital investment, strategic partner. I want to continue to run it. I just want to be able to make some bigger moves, have some bigger players at the table. So this was not just about maximizing the transaction. It was about where does it put me? And is this the situation I want to be in post transaction to really continue to grow and scale?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And I think that is very important in any case, even when you're planning maybe not to stay on for that long. I think situations where you just step out and hand over the keys are,
Hmm.
I'm not sure if those even exist, to be honest. I
They're
think
rare.
not,
They happen
not a
every now
lot
and
of
again, but
investors would be really interested in that in my mind.
yeah.
But yeah, like it's very important to realize you're gonna likely work for at least a few years,
Yeah.
with these people, and it needs to be a good match. And in that particular case, I just couldn't feel that, and I didn't feel they would be, if money is the only contribution they could make, I don't think that's worth it. Like
Yeah.
there needs to be more. There needs to be a true partnership. You need to be able to trust each other. You need to be able to,
Yeah.
they should bring in some expertise that you actually need as well. And at
Okay.
the time, that wasn't true. So
Yeah.
I decided not to continue.
How I'm curious on how you discovered that. Like what part of the process gave you the insight that led you to the conclusion like this really isn't the right deal for me, right? Because of the people and the nature of things and where it's going to put me. And on reflection, is there anything you would have done different or earlier to kind of suss that out? Because it sounds like you got pretty far down the process. I mean, if you're doing due diligence, right, that's a fairly involved step in
Yeah.
transaction. Give me your thoughts on that. Like, what would you do differently?
I'm not sure if I could have anticipated that, to be honest. Like,
Yeah.
because these are the things that made me think that, right?
Hmm.
Well, maybe there's actually one thing I could have done. I will circle back to that.
Okay.
Um, so we went through the whole due diligence process, and then basically feedback I was getting like everything is fine. We passed due diligence, right? And then they came back and started renegotiating,
Yeah, of course.
and
Yeah.
it was for some kind of
Yeah.
made up reason, right? I think it
Crazy.
was
Yeah.
something like, "Oh, we thought your US team was bigger." It's like, well, like I don't know what was unclear about the list of employees
Yeah.
that I sent like on day one, right?
Yeah.
And that's hurt my trust, to be honest. Like, and I
Yeah.
know this is done once in a while, but like that doesn't mean I have to like it, right? So I
Yeah.
didn't like that. And I kind of felt like, okay, so I'm gonna need to work with you. I need to trust you building the company together. But now already you're showing that you're kind of unreliable. I'm
Hmm.
okay with negotiating and negotiating intensely. I'm used to that.
Yeah.
But I'm also someone like a man of my word. And
Hmm.
I just didn't feel it was appropriate.
Yeah.
So that was the first indicator that I didn't like. And then they only after that they started introducing the team that actually would be working with me.
Got it.
And like they were suggesting a particular person on the team, and it's like I felt this person didn't have the right. It was a very like nice and experienced person,
Hmm.
but didn't have the expertise that I kind of was looking for and
Yeah.
needed. So those two things together made me kind of bow
Yeah.
out from the opportunity. So what I could have done differently to
Yeah.
circle back to that, I could have made it clear, like, listen, once you have a valuation on the table, then that's what we're sticking to. And what would be potentially the rules to change that
Yeah.
valuation, right? So I think that could have been, but of course, like I was completely inexperienced in doing any of this. So I didn't know that at the time, but that's something I would recommend for others to
Yeah,
do.
it happens all the time, pretty much. And one thing I try to do in these deals is make sure that the letter of intent has, like, we've clarified the representations we've made about the performance, the nature of the performance of the company, financial and otherwise, and that due diligence is really just validating those things and assuming that those things are proved to be valid. That's, we won't be changing the terms. The only reason we change the terms if something we've represented turns out not to be true in due diligence because of that exact issue, right? It's because it's a classic, right? You go through due diligence and then they want to do a haircut. They don't want to do a retrade. It's like, oh, well, now that we look at this thing, we don't like the client concentration of this. I was like, well, you had the client concentration earlier, right? There's nothing
Yeah.
new here. And it's hard because it does. I mean, if you're doing a clean transaction and you're just walking away and you're getting cash on the table and there's no, ongoing thing, it's like, okay, fine. Like, negotiate the deal, get the money and walk away. But, if you're going to be staying on even, again, an earnout or, you've got money still on the table, you're keeping equity in there. It's like, it's tough. Right. One of the things I generally like is get all the issues up front, right? Put all the hair on the table up front.
Yep.
Because then it's a positive experience from there, right? You're never going to have to be dropping other shoes later in due diligence and things like that, because that's what kills the other side. It's when the buyers are like, oh, wait, what is this other thing you didn't tell me about now? And now we're halfway through diligence, and now they're like kind of put it all out there.
Yeah, I
And
really like that. That is great advice, Bruce, because like ultimately everything is going to be exposed,
yeah, it's
right?
going to
So
go.
the illusion that you can kind of like
Yeah.
approach is more like a sales conversation or something where you could potentially kind of I wouldn't say hiding, right? But
Yeah.
you could like not highlight some of the things that are maybe not so great.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're gonna come up.
Yeah.
Uh, 100% sure, right?
Yeah.
So, and ultimately, in the ultimate situation I ended up with, that's exactly how this went as well.
Yeah.
Like, I have been very transparent from the start about
Mm-hmm.
everything. The like the how do you say that? Like the good, the great, no,
The good, the bad, and the ugly.
good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
Thank you. So it's all part of it, and I think that's also part of trust, right? And if
Yeah.
someone would walk away as a result, then that's what it is. Like then they were
Yeah.
not the right partner.
Yeah. So you went through that once. You went all the way through diligence. Didn't do the deal. And I guess at the end of that, were you disheartened? Were you emboldened? It's like, oh, now I know what I'm doing. I'm going to go back out to market. Like, what was your mindset after going through that whole process and not completing a transaction?
Well, it was an interesting time, because like at the time I thought like like it's fine. Like I wasn't disheartened at all, and I
Hmm.
I actually just thought in my mind like, listen, I'm just gonna keep building the business. We're doing
Yep.
well, and it will be an even better opportunity sometime in the future when the time is right. Not knowing that actually I would go through quite a downturn.
Hmm.
It was an industry-wide downturn in our particular sector.
Yeah.
So of course I've been scratching myself behind the ears a few times. So like, hey,
Hmm.
should I have just done it, right?
Yeah.
But then if I think about it, like maybe from an economical perspective, that would have made sense. But from a like happiness perspective, it would
Yeah.
have not, right? So
Yeah.
I'm still extremely happy with how everything turned out.
Yeah.
Of course, due diligence is very tiring, and you invest a lot of time. But then at the same time, I came out of those conversations
Hmm.
with a lot of learnings.
Yeah.
Um, they also tend to do a lot of research on your behalf. They're going to interview your clients and typical,
Hmm.
for instance, right? And they're going to feed that back to you, and they're going to analyze all your numbers. And it's like, so,
Hmm.
in worst case scenario, you can see it as a free consultancy session.
Yeah. It's like a big diagnostic on the health and sellability of your company. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so where did you end up? So that deal didn't work out. You went through a little bit of a downturn, recovery. Like how did you end up then doing the deal you ultimately transacted on?
Yeah, it was very organic actually. So I wasn't necessarily like looking around or like
Hmm.
I wasn't approaching anyone actually. It was just one of those situations where I actually got connected. It was actually through that particular conference I went to. Got to speak with someone that was in a search fund.
Okay.
And I just really liked the conversation. I could just feel it was a good match. And in this particular case, um, he would also come into our organization, which is actually what happened. So he
Yeah.
became our CEO,
Hmm.
and I became the chief strategy officer as a result. And I could just see the benefit because he was, when we were talking about how we could potentially do this, he was outlining his strengths, um, which are quite different than mine, but exactly in an area where I would love some support. And it
Hmm.
also allows me to actually focus on things that I like
Yeah.
more. So just from that perspective, it felt like a really good match. Now, of course, what all needed to line up with that was the financial part of the deal and how things would be structured and so on. And I think other considerations are also, especially in our space, like it's quite different if, for instance, like a large competitor comes around the corner and wants to tuck you into their organization,
Yeah.
as they call it,
Yeah.
or you might be the first organization they're investing in your sector, which is more our situation here.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not saying I would never do the other thing, but I do sometimes feel that, especially if you're kind of an innovator in your space, that can be a little bit hard.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm really happy that I found someone that actually um, is really aligned, and I think someone coming into your company to help you building this up is a really high value. So this is not just an investment. It's
Yeah.
where a return is expected. Of course, the return is expected, but it comes backed up with people that
Yeah.
actually support you, and that was extremely important.
Yeah.
Now, also the investment group behind it, the Brighton Group in this
Hmm.
case, um, I just felt like a good. I don't know. I just felt good with
Hmm.
how they communicated with me. Um, I noticed in the past talking with some of these groups that they are quite dispassionate, right,
Hmm.
and don't really understand
Yeah.
that they're talking with the founder. So I'm basically selling my brainchild, right? And
Hmm.
some people they are just so I don't know, they don't really understand that,
Yeah.
and they talk about it like it's a car, or
Yeah.
whatever, right? And in this particular case, I could just really feel that they respected that element of it, and that I've been spending 12, 13 years um, building this
Yeah.
company up, and that it is a big deal to actually invite someone into your space,
Hmm.
right? So I think to me, those were very important things.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about how you negotiated the role, because I'm always fascinated with founders that stay on, particularly when you're going to bring in another CEO and you're going to have another executive role. I guess, how did that work out in terms of seeing that opportunity, and then how did you negotiate that, or how important or how complicated was the negotiated that as part of the overall deal, and were there a lot of trade-offs for you in terms of, well, I could just sell the whole thing and get cash versus I could leave money on the table. I could retain equity. I could get executive compensation, performance bonuses as part of my role. How did you kind of work through the total deal, given that you had an ongoing role?
Yeah, so they were actually really open with me on
Hmm.
they were asking a lot of questions versus just telling me what was going to happen,
Yeah.
right? And that was really convenient because I think that's the way how you'll find win-win situations in
Yeah.
life, right? If you prescribe, it's going to be hard to find
Yeah.
a way that works for everyone. Um, and it happens to be the case, and maybe we were just very lucky, but it happened to be the case that we were very much aligned on how we saw things. So, for instance, I really I do like the sales role in my company a
Yeah.
lot, because I'm very passionate about the services we provide and the value we create for clients. So as a result, I like to consult with our clients. I like to come
Hmm.
up with new ideas on how we can tackle things. Um, that is for me the most important point of what I'm doing in the organization. I am less on the, uh, I guess, maybe finance front or
Hmm.
HR or other things like that. And John Ribble, the person that now became our CEO, that is where his strengths actually are.
Yeah.
So it was just it became quickly apparent to us how we could split this up in a way that would make sense for both.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's your plan? I mean, do you have a particular time frame? Like you're planning on staying on for a couple of years, or you're on here until you decide you're not? Like how structured and how much runway vision do you have for the new role?
Yeah, well, there's no defined time frame. I will stay as long as I have a good time, right?
Yeah.
Like I think it's important that you feel purpose in your professional life.
Yeah.
So so that is important to me. And also like this whole deal offers now new opportunities, right? So now we can grow and we can
Yeah.
grow inorganically. So we're now, looking where else could we make investments that make sense for our group to grow.
Mhm.
So after like 12 years, it's also really welcoming to kind of have like a new perspective and a change of scenery. So I have the opportunity to learn one or two things about that, for instance,
Mhm.
right? Which is like sparking my imagination again. Um, so I would say like there's no predetermined plan here, but like I said, the company is an entity of its own.
Yeah.
So in whatever economical scenario I am, I do want the company to become something bigger and become kind of a legacy
Mhm.
that keeps existing, right? And I think this next phase of growth is kind of solidifying that thought, and I'm really excited to be part of that process.
That's great. That's great. Any kind of reflections, takeaways, learnings that you'd share with the audience in terms of, things you wish you did differently, or things that you realize were really good moves that you would encourage people to think about, or to, put on their checklist for, earlier in the process. A lot easier to do this earlier than later. So think about it. What comes up on that list?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel things we covered a little bit already, right? So I think like especially contractually, whether this is
Yeah.
with clients or with employees or anything else, or like policies like GDPR and data
Yeah.
security. Like even though it's hard to see it in the moment, and sometimes it's kind of an investment, especially as a small company.
Yeah.
I think you can take like a few steps to kind of scale this up over time, but don't wait too long.
Yeah.
Um, and it's easy to forget if you skip it a little bit in the beginning, then you might just become too busy and not think about it, and then it will come back to you with a
Yeah.
vengeance at a point you don't want it. So that is definitely something that we already mentioned that I think is extremely important. And I also think like personally, I believe um, run your company because of your passion, right? Like I think like an exit is great if you want it,
Hmm.
right? But I believe if you put that as your goal, you might not be ever getting there because
Yeah.
it's like um, it should be the result of building a successful company, and that is what, of course, investors want to buy
Yeah.
in successful companies. And I think those are built based out of a desire to change something in this world
Hmm.
and do something that other people appreciate
Yeah.
and are happy to pay money for, right?
Yeah.
And then also, like I mentioned in the beginning, like run your company as if you were selling it
Yeah.
at the same time, right? So if you were an investor, what are the things the
Yeah.
hard facts that you would be critical about? Um, and it could be many different things. Like in one that I haven't mentioned so far in our conversation yet, for instance, is like revenue concentration, which is
Hmm.
I run an agency, so comparable with a marketing agency, right?
Yeah.
And that is like a famous thing that
Oh
investors
yeah.
look at. Like if 40% of your revenue comes from one client, that is risky for them.
Uh-huh.
And these are things you need to keep under control. You need to look at that,
Yeah.
like, but not just because at a certain point you want to exit, but just because it's like healthy
It's
business
good.
to do
Yeah. It's good
so.
business. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good business. Yeah. I always, my kind of philosophy is, have an assumption that you're going to keep the business beer forever and be ready to sell at any time. Right. And it's
Yes.
really kind of in that play is where the best scenarios can happen, because then you can take the offer, right? You get something comes across your desk and you're ready to sell. If it's a great offer and you're ready, then do it. And if an offer comes across, you don't have to take it. Right. I think that's, being in a position where you're desperate to sell. It's not good for
Yeah.
anyone.
Yeah. And there's maybe one other thing that that kind of surprised me a little bit. You don't have to kind of wait for the perfect moment to
Hmm.
start having conversations.
Yeah.
It might not be the perfect moment to actually make a move, but it doesn't mean you can't have conversations. Even when things are not going that well, it can
Yeah.
still be good to have conversations and build up your network. Because, like most of these investors, they've seen it all and they understand that businesses go up and down.
Mm-hmm.
So even when things are maybe down a little bit, like you can still have conversations.
Yeah.
And then you can actually show like, listen, this is what we did to change it. This is how we recovered. And now we're healthy, right? And that almost makes it more interesting because now they also understand that you're not just lucky.
Yeah, exactly.
You actually know how to run a business, right?
Yeah.
Like, and the business is solid. So, that's maybe one other tip. Like, build your network. Keep in touch with that network. Just regular touch points once in a while, without like overdoing it, so that you don't lose too much time on it and can focus on running on your business. But I think it's healthy to have a network of investors you can talk with.
Yeah. Excellent advice. Wesley, it's been a pleasure. If people want to contact you, get more information, what's the best way to get that?
I would say LinkedIn. Easy to find me on LinkedIn, and I can send you the link if you want to post it in the show notes.
I'll put it in the show notes here.
And happy to help others that are going through a similar experience, sharing some of my experiences in this endeavor.
I appreciate it. That's a great offer. Thank you so much for taking the time today, Wesley. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you, Bruce.